Welcome to the deep dive. We've all been there, that messy, beautiful, sometimes utterly heartbreaking path to connecting with others.
hmm
Whether it's chasing true love, building friendships, or just trying to navigate everyday conflict, it's rarely smooth sailing. We experience the soaring highs, the gut-wrenching lows, and, yeah, the inevitable disappointments.
It's so true. Sometimes it feels like the universe is just, I don't know, throwing obstacles in your way. And you're
Hmm.
left wondering why certain patterns keep repeating, maybe. Or why some people seem to bounce back from rejection while others just get stuck in bitterness.
Yeah, that truly frames our mission today, doesn't it? We're diving deep into how our mindsets, our basic beliefs dramatically shape our experiences in love, in friendship, and even when facing tough stuff like conflict and bullying.
Right.
We're going to unpack some really surprising insights from the sources you've shared about fixed versus growth mindsets in these, relational contexts.
Yeah, the goal is really to understand not just what happens, but why it matters.
Yeah,
And maybe how you can actually foster healthier, more resilient connection.
exactly. Let's get into it.
Okay, so maybe we start with one of the most universal pains, rejection. Our sources recount stories from, gosh, over 100 people who described terrible rejections.
Wow.
And a recurring theme was someone like Lydia, who felt like she and Jack had known each other forever, only for him to suddenly disappear. He just left an unsigned note. Total abandonment.
Oh, that's brutal.
Yeah, and this kind of wrenching pain, it's common across the board, regardless of mindset, at least initially.
The pain itself, the immediate shock, that's almost universal. Okay.
Yeah.
But what I find fascinating is the divergence in response. What specifically makes someone with a fixed mindset gravitate so strongly towards revenge, often at the expense of their own healing? It seems like such a heavy burden to carry.
Well, what's truly insightful here is how the fixed mindset kind of traps individuals. They get stuck in this loop of perceived powerlessness. If they believe their worth is fixed and it's just been shattered by rejection,
Yeah.
well, the only way to reclaim any sense of agency seems to be to wound the source of that pain.
Ah, okay.
It's tragic irony, really, as it offers no real path to healing. For them, rejection feels like a permanent judgment, like a brand on their forehead. Unlovable.
Hmm.
Lydia, for example, expressed this lasting, intense bitterness. She said she'd get back at him, hurt him any way I could if I got the chance. He deserves it. Another man stated, she took my worth with her when she left. Not a day goes by I don't think about how to make her pay.
Wow.
It's pretty intense. It's no wonder the phrase revenge is sweet likely originated from this kind of mindset.
Oof. That's a heavy burden to carry, like you said. So if that's the fixed mindset's default, how does the growth mindset approach such profound hurt?
It's quite different. For those with a growth mindset, even really painful rejections become about understanding, forgiving, and, crucially, moving on. They seem to have little taste for revenge.
Okay.
Instead, their focus is on learning something useful, about themselves, about relationships, things they can apply in the future. There's a beautiful French expression that captures this. Tout comprendre, c'est tout pardonner. To understand all is to forgive all.
That concept of not being permanently branded by rejection, that's incredibly powerful. But how does someone practically cultivate that kind of inner peace, especially when the initial hurt is so raw, so profound?
I think it really boils down to choosing your future over dwelling in the past. Like the woman who said, I'm no saint, but I knew for my own peace of mind that I had to forgive and forget.
Mm.
He hurt me, but I had a whole life waiting for me. One day I just said, good luck to him and good luck to me.
It's a choice, a deliberate choice.
Absolutely. Or think about Kathy, the author's cousin. After 23 years of marriage ended and she suffered a leg injury, she declared, I'll be damned if I'm going to sit here and feel sorry for myself. She went dancing, even with her injury, and met her future husband.
Incredible.
And then there's Nicole, famously stood up at her lavish wedding.
Yeah.
Instead of hiding, she changed into a black dress and danced solo to I Will Survive, became an icon of gutsiness, really, without ever using the word humiliated. And later, she married a great guy in the same church.
That's truly incredible resilience. It's such a vivid demonstration of the growth mindset in action. It makes me wonder, what's the underlying mechanism there? How does it allow individuals to transform such painful experiences into personal growth?
The key, I think, is that they don't see the event as a final judgment on their fixed self. They see it more as a challenge or maybe an opportunity for learning. These individuals aren't diminished by these wrenching events. Somehow they're enlarged by them. The pain serves as a catalyst, for a stronger, more informed future.
Right. But what about relationships before the pain of rejection even hits? How do these mindsets fundamentally shape how we approach and build connections in the first place? It's interesting because, well, Benjamin Bloom, the educational researcher, found it hard to define giftedness in relationships, even though we easily spot talent elsewhere.
Yeah, that societal blind spot is precisely where mindsets add this crucial dimension. We often don't think of relationship skills as a distinct ability, do we? We use terms like cool or charming or say couples have chemistry.
Right, not they're brilliant relationship makers.
Exactly. Yet these are essential social emotional skills, and mindsets help us understand why people struggle to learn or apply them, often undermining what could be really promising new relationships.
So if you have a fixed mindset in love, you're not just thinking your own traits are fixed, you start believing your partner's qualities are fixed too.
Hmm.
And even the relationship itself is inherently fixed. Either it's meant to be or it's not meant to be. Everything is up for judgment. The ideal is like instant, perfect, perpetual compatibility, like a fairy tale.
Exactly, that fairy tale ideal. The growth mindset, on the other hand, believes that all of these things, you, your partner, the relationship itself, are capable of development, growth, and change. Which naturally leads us to some key pitfalls of the fixed mindset in love.
Okay, let's unpack those. Pitfall number one, if you have to work at it, it wasn't meant to be. This sounds so romantic on the surface, right? This expectation of magic, like Sleeping Beauty or Cinderella, where true love just automatically solves everything. But what's the underlying danger there?
Well, it's a really common misconception that effort somehow signifies a lack of fundamental connection. Like if it's really right, it should be effortless.
Yeah.
Take Charlene and Max. They had this intense initial connection, but when Max's moodiness started surfacing, problems arose. Charlene wanted to talk, which just irritated him. And both of them felt with real sorrow that if it were the right one, they wouldn't have to work so hard.
And that led to the breakup.
Ultimately, yes. And this belief, it flies in the face of what basically every single relationship expert says.
Yeah.
People like psychiatrist Aaron Beck, they stress that effort is absolutely critical for relationships to thrive. That fixed mindset belief that success should need effort. It robs people of the very thing they need to make their relationship thrive.
That makes so much sense. Okay, pitfall number two. This dangerous belief in mind reading and assumed agreement. The idea that your partner should just know your thoughts, feelings, needs.
Oh, yeah. This always backfires. It inevitably does.
Always.
Pretty much.
Okay.
Take Tom and Lucy. After 3 months, Tom mentioned an imbalance in their relationship. Lucy, assuming she was reading his mind, immediately jumped to the conclusion he was less interested.
Oh, yeah.
But when she finally asked what he meant, Tom revealed he's using a musical term. He wanted to fine-tune their relationship, move it to the next level.
Wow, completely different meanings.
Totally. It's a classic example of our fixed mindsets jumping to these dramatic, often negative conclusions. And it extends to the expectation that partners must share all views. Even minor discrepancies can feel threatening, hostile. The source even recounts an anecdote where the author herself interpreted her husband's blank stare as some major relationship crisis. Turns out he just wanted more room on the couch.
Huh. That's incredibly relatable. It really highlights how quickly we can fall into that trap. It's almost as if the fixed mindset expects a kind of telepathic perfection, making actual communication feel like a failure.
Precisely. And then you get the problematic rights and duties assumptions in marriage.
Right.
Like John Gottman's observation of men refusing to wash dishes because it's woman's job, only to wonder 2 years later why their wives no longer wanted sex.
Yikes. Cause and effect.
Right. Or Janet and Phil. Janet hosted Phil's housewarming party, did all the work, and Phil just acted like a guest in his own home. Janet's rage led to her own retaliatory behavior before they eventually, thankfully, learned to communicate.
So the takeaway is,
The source is crystal clear. A no-effort relationship is a doomed relationship. It takes work, communication, resolving conflicts. It's not they lived happily ever after. It's more like they worked happily ever after.
they worked happily ever after. I love that.
Yeah.
It's so much more realistic and honestly more empowering. Okay, what about the third big pitfall? When problems are seen as indicating character flaws.
This is a major issue with the fixed mindset. When conflicts arise, they're not seen as situational problems to solve together. They're seen as deep-seated flaws in the partner. This leads straight to blame, anger, even disgust. And because traits are seen as fixed, the problems are perceived as unsolvable, which breeds contempt and dissatisfaction.
So instead of seeing a problem as something to overcome together, it becomes proof that the person is the problem, permanently flawed.
Exactly. This must be why someone like Charlie couldn't confront the reality of his wife Yvonne's suspected affair. He couldn't handle the idea that she was a bad person, or that he was, or that their relationship was irreparably broken. It would have implied a fixed flaw, a final judgment.
Whereas a growth mindset would.
A growth mindset would confront the situation itself, explore what's wrong, maybe with a counselor, and then make an informed decision about what to do next. It keeps the door open to solutions, you see.
Right.
And then you have people like Penelope, who kept breaking up with great guys over really minor flaws, a tacky present, putting ketchup on food, bad cell phone etiquette.
Ketchup! Seriously?
Seriously.
She assumed these were fixed traits, evidence of fundamental incompatibility, and was endlessly seeking a perfect, flawless partner.
That sounds exhausting.
Yeah.
And it really reinforces what relationship expert Daniel Weil says. Choosing a partner is choosing a set of problems. There are no problem-free candidates out there.
Absolutely not.
The trick is to acknowledge limitations and build from there.
Exactly. Think of Brenda and Jack. They had this communication breakdown over a work story. Jack was bored, Brenda sensed it, then launched into another story trying to be more amusing. Both were mentally hurling traits, right? Thinking Brenda is boring or Jack is selfish.
Instead of seeing it as a solvable communication issue, it wasn't a fundamental flaw. It's about reframing, like you said.
Yeah.
Or Ted and Karen, initially attracted by opposite traits, her spontaneity, his stability. But a few years later, Karen's an irresponsible airhead and Ted's a judgmental tyrant.
Ouch. The same traits, just viewed negatively.
But Ted, guided by Aaron Beck, made a choice. When Karen was overwhelmed, instead of judging, he just quietly cleaned up the house, offering support. That small act shifted the dynamic because he saw a changeable situation, not a fixed flaw.
Aaron Beck's advice here seems really critical, doesn't it? Never believe your partner is incapable of change or that the relationship can't improve. He says those ideas are almost always wrong.
It's such important advice. Even in a high-profile case like Bill and Hillary Clinton, Hillary struggled to forgive Bill after his lies. The source notes she realized she could only forgive a man who was earnestly struggling with his problems and trying to grow. And Bill, through counseling, came to understand his dual life. It illustrates that growth is possible, but it requires the individual to actually want it and commit to the process.
And this mindset shift also explains that tendency you mentioned earlier, the fist mindset, turning a partner into an enemy.
Yes, exactly. One moment, they're the light of your life. The next, they're the adversary. It often stems from blame. It's just easier to blame your partner to avoid blaming yourself, you know. If my partner's the bad guy, then I must be the good guy.
It's a classic defense mechanism, isn't it? I love how the author of the source material admits to this, inventing that imaginary figure Maurice to pin the blame on, just to break the habit. Poor Maurice.
It's a great visual, right?
Yeah.
A way to externalize the blame impulse. But this dynamic isn't just romantic partners. It can apply to even deeper relationships, like parent-child dynamics.
How so?
Well, fixed mindset questions can haunt you. If my parents didn't love me enough, were they bad parents or was I just unlovable? That kind of binary thinking.
That's heavy.
It is. The author shares her own powerful journey with her mother, who initially seemed unable to express love. The author decided to let go of the bitterness and just chose to be the loving daughter she wanted to be, regardless of her mother's response.
That takes incredible strength.
It does. And what's amazing is that this growth mindset shift on her part, unexpectedly, led to her mother's own realization and growth years later. They forged this deep 25-year bond. She literally says, the growth mindset gave me a mother.
That's just beautiful. It really shows how transformative this can be. When you choose to rise above blame, focus on understanding, it opens up entirely new possibilities.
It really does. And this need to prove competence in the fixed mindset, it can even lead to competition with your partner.
That's something I hadn't fully considered. Competition within a partnership. Can you give us some examples?
Certainly. Think of Susan's boyfriend, Martin. Highly successful himself, but he became consumed by Susan's seemingly greater popularity. He saw her social success as somehow diminishing his own. Or Cynthia, the scientist. The source mentions she consistently outshone her partners in their own fields, whether it was acting or cooking. They eventually left the relationship, needing to reclaim their own identity. These aren't really partnerships. They feel more like battlegrounds for self-worth.
So it really highlights that good relationships are built on feeling on the same side. It's not about, extreme makeovers of your partner,
Right.
but truly encouraging each other to reach their own goals, fulfill their own potential. That sounds like the growth mindset in action in a marriage.
Exactly. And we see this positively with Laura and James. James consistently calmed Laura, encouraged communication, which built mutual trust. They actively supported each other's development.
Right.
Laura writing children's books, James building his corporation. They were a team.
That's the ideal, isn't it? And this whole mindset thing, it clearly extends beyond romance to our friendships as well. Friendships are supposed to be these essential spaces to enhance each other's development, provide validation.
Absolutely. But just like in romance, a fixed mindset can warp this. Remember the Sherry Levy study
Mm-hmm.
about boys endorsing negative stereotypes about girls?
Yeah.
It revealed a key insight. Some fixed mindset individuals boost their own self-esteem by putting others down. It's that sort of the lower you are, the better I feel mentality.
It's a stark reminder that some people, even if they seem charming, will subtly or overtly make you feel bad just to build themselves up. It reminds me of that awful story, the sister giving a tribute speech at a 50th birthday party.
Brutal.
Basically an attack.
Right.
Subtly diminishing her siblings' looks, brains, mothering skills. It makes you think, with friends like this, who needs enemies?
Exactly. And the author herself had this vivid dream where a seemingly close friend was just suddenly draining her, taking her prized possessions, making her feel one down. It's a wake-up call, you know. Sometimes those closest to us can be subtly undermining our self-esteem for their own validation, which raises an important, less commonly asked question about friendship.
Okay, you mean beyond the usual wisdom that you know your friends in times of need? What's the even tougher question?
Who can you truly turn to when good things happen? Like when you find a wonderful partner, land a great job, or your kid has some amazing success, your failures don't usually threaten other people's self-esteem, right? So it's relatively easy to be sympathetic when someone's down. But your successes, those can be really problematic for people who derive their self-esteem from feeling superior.
That's a sobering thought, and one that really resonates. The author even admits she was a culprit in her fixed mindset days, using people for validation, like that businessman on the train.
Right, using him as a mirror of my excellence.
Instead of showing genuine interest in him, it's a subtle but really important distinction in how we engage with others.
And this whole idea of social judgment, feeling evaluated, it links directly to the experience of shyness.
That's the flip side, isn't it? Shy people worry that others will bring them down, judging them in social situations. They feel anxious, maybe avoid eye contact, and often just can't show their true selves.
Yeah, and Jennifer Beer's study on shyness and mindsets is fascinating here. She found, maybe unsurprisingly, that people with a fixed mindset were more likely to be shy because of that intense concern about judgment. But crucially, she also found plenty of shy people with a growth mindset.
Okay, so if both groups can be shy, what stood out? How did the shy, growth-minded people differ from the shy, fixed-minded ones in, like, how they navigated social anxiety?
Well, both groups felt nervous initially. That's key.
Mm-hmm.
But the shy, growth-minded people tended to view social situations as challenges, opportunities to learn. They actively welcomed meeting new people, even if it felt scary.
Okay.
And over a short period, they actually showed greater social skills, became more likable, more enjoyable to interact with. They essentially took control of their shyness because they saw social skill as something they could develop.
And the fixed mindset, shy people.
In contrast, they tended to avoid interaction, worried constantly about mistakes, and remained nervous and awkward. They often continued to avoid eye contact. For them, shyness tyrannizes them. It feels like a fixed state they can't escape.
That makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
So it's not about whether you feel nervous initially, it's about how you interpret and respond to that feeling. Is it a threat or a challenge?
Precisely. Consider George, a client of therapist Scott Wetzler. He was so terrified of appearing overeager and inept with women that he acted cold and aloof. Famously told an attractive coworker who suggested joining him for coffee, "It doesn't matter to me if you sit down or not."
Oh, George, no.
Right. But therapy helped him shift his focus away from being judged towards developing a relationship. This eventually allowed him to apologize to her and move forward. He learned that social skills aren't fixed. They can actually improve.
That's an incredible lesson. Transforming a perceived fixed flaw into an area for growth. And speaking of rejection and judgment, this brings us to one of the most painful forms, bullying. It's just a nightmare kids face daily in schools, isn't it? Tormented for any number of reasons, leading to deep depression, rage.
It's awful. And sadly, schools often fail to act effectively. Sometimes they even view the victims as the problem somehow. This systemic failure has been tragically linked to school shootings like Columbine, where both Eric Harris and Dylan Klebold were known victims of chronic, severe bullying.
And what do our sources say about the bullies themselves? What's the mindset driving that kind of behavior?
Well, bullying seems fundamentally about judging. It's about establishing superiority, getting a self-esteem boost by demeaning others. Just like those boys in Sherry Levy's study gained self-esteem by endorsing stereotypes.
Right.
It's clear fixed mindset thinking. Some people are superior and some are inferior, and the bullies appoint themselves as the judges.
So, how do victims of bullying react based on their mindset, especially given such profound, often public judgment?
Well, for deeply judged people, especially those leaning towards a fixed mindset, the response is often to feel terrible about themselves, and sometimes to lash out violently. Research actually shows that perfectly normal people, both children and adults, can express shocking, violent fantasies of revenge after experiencing rejection.
Really? Even normal people?
Yeah. In one scenario presented to eighth graders, bullied students with a fixed mindset reported feeling like nobodies. And they said their number one goal would be to get revenge, even fantasizing about punching or running over their tormentors. This, tragically, is what Harrison Klebold actually did.
That's a chilling connection. It's the ultimate act of judging back, isn't it?
It seems so. However, growth mindset students in the very same scenario reacted completely differently. They didn't see the bullying as a reflection of their own inherent worth.
How did they see it?
They tended to see it as the bully's psychological problem. They'd say things like, they need to get a life, or they must feel bad about themselves. Their plans involved constructive action, like educating the bullies. They wanted the bullies to understand that they are wrong and to become better people.
Wow, that's such a constructive approach, especially compared to violent revenge. It reminds me of Brooks Brown, the Columbine classmate you mentioned. He was bullied relentlessly from third grade on,
Yeah, suffered tremendously.
but he rejected the fixed mindset. He embraced growth, even offering a truce to Eric Harris at one point, because, as he said, people do have the potential to change.
It's incredibly powerful. Brooks continues to advocate for growth and peaceful solutions for victims. He emphasizes that the answer isn't violence, but to use your mind and make things better. He warns against just dismissing shooters as sick monsters, urging us instead to recognize how prolonged bullying can instill that fixed mindset in victims, potentially leading to self-judgment, depression, suicide, or yes, violence.
So, what can be done then? Individual kids often can't stop bullies, especially if they have supporters or the school isn't helping. How can we shift the dynamic more broadly?
That's where schools really come in. They have the power to change the overall school mindset, from one of judgment to one focused on collaboration and self-improvement. Stan Davis's anti-bullying program, which builds on Dan Ulwais's work, has had incredible results.
Good kind of results.
He's seen dramatic reductions in bullying, like 93% reduction of physical bullying, 53% in teasing in the schools using his approach.
93%, that's astounding. How does he achieve that kind of transformation?
He works to create an environment where even former bullies start protecting victims. A key part is consistent discipline, but without labeling the bullies as inherently bad. Instead, he praises effort towards pro-social behavior.
Can you give an example?
Sure. He might say something like, you have been staying out of fights. That tells me you are working on getting along with people. He guides them toward a growth mindset by showing them they can improve, that their behavior isn't a fixed trait.
That sounds similar to Haim Janat's approach for teachers.
Exactly, pointing bullies toward improvement and compassion. Janat told a story about writing a letter to an 8-year-old bully, asking for his advice on how to help another child who was being bullied. It showed respect and valued his potential for growth, rather than just condemning him.
It really challenges society's quiet acceptance of brutalizing children, doesn't it? As Stan Davis points out, we no longer tolerate openly brutalizing other groups. Why do we accept it for kids?
It's a powerful question. By accepting it, Davis argues, we actually insult the bullies themselves. We're telling them we don't think they're capable of anything more, anything better.
It's a really powerful call to action for schools, for parents, for all of us. Wow, what a powerful way to round out this deep dive. So, thinking about everything we've discussed, what does this all mean for us, for you listening, as we think about our own mindsets in relationships?
Well, I think one key takeaway is that after a painful rejection, you really do have a choice. You can shift away from bitterness and revenge, acknowledge the hurt, definitely, but lean into hope. Focus on what you can learn about yourself and what you truly want in future connections.
And when it comes to those ideal relationships, maybe challenge that myth of perfect compatibility. See problems not as signs of fundamental flaws, but as, I don't know, opportunities for deeper understanding,
Mm,
for intimacy that comes through patient communication. That closeness can be really surprising.
absolutely. And if
Right.
you recognize yourself as a blamer, maybe consider creating your own Maurice, that imaginary scapegoat. Or even better, actively work on moving beyond the need to assign fault altogether. Try to seek understanding and fix problems collaboratively.
Yeah. And for anyone who struggles with shyness, maybe embrace that growth mindset perspective. View social situations not as judgment zones, but as challenges for learning and hopefully enjoyment. Your social skills can improve with practice. You are not fixed in your shyness.
Exactly. Ultimately, the really profound difference a growth mindset makes is this. It transforms pain into purpose. It turns challenges into opportunities. And it can even shift what might seem like adversaries into potential collaborators.
Which allows for richer, more resilient connections in basically every aspect of your life. It's about building a life and building relationships where you truly work happily ever
I like
after.
that. Work happily ever after.